Good afternoon, everybody. This is Paul Norcross from the Charter School Marketplace of the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation project. And I'd like to introduce everybody to Lindalyn Kakadelis. Lindalyn is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Charter School Coalition. And I am just going to throw it right over to Lindalyn and ask her to tell us about her personal history and her history with the coalition. I know we met probably 20 some years ago at a conference. So you've been in this game for a long time. So if you would tell everybody your history and your background.
Oh, Paul, thank you. And thank you for hosting me today. And congratulations on Charter School Marketplace. This is exciting to see what you're doing. I am an elementary school teacher and got involved in education policy because I was wondering what was tying the hands of teachers. And they'd say, oh, well, we can't do it this way, or we have to do it this way. So I got interested in education policy. Started attending school board meetings in Mecklenburg County back in the 1990s and ran for school board in 95, won, and served 2 terms on the Charlotte School Board, which also got me very interested in 1996 when the charter school law was passed. So from there, I started working with the John Locke Foundation and working with education policy. And then in 2018, a group of people got together and thought about having the coalition, having an organization with a C6 tax status, which was different than a C3. And the fact that we would spend every dime on advocacy work, both at the statutory and regulatory level, which means we're working with the General Assembly and the agency. That happened in 2018. I was no longer with the Locke Foundation, working independently with charter schools. 2019, we launched the coalition, and we're getting ready to celebrate our 5th year of promoting and protecting charter schools, working mainly in Raleigh. We do a little bit in Washington, D.C., but as you know, most of what affects charter schools daily is what comes out of the General Assembly and then how the agency interprets it. And so we start with an idea. We help the General Assembly members write the bill, and then we follow the bill and work with the bill all the way through the General Assembly over to the agency, and then watch the interpretation and how it's implemented.
Yep, I remember those meetings. Our former Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest hosted 1 or 2, getting the wheels in motion for it. It was needed back then, especially, and it's definitely needed more and more. And one of the things we've been talking about is you've got to stay on top of it, because if you don't, if you fall asleep, you disappear. So this last session, the coalition had a big win. So two things. First of all, tell us, if you would, what the achievements were this past session in the General Assembly that support charter schools. And secondly, explain to us who you have working for you or with you when it comes to policy and lobbying efforts, who they are and what they do.
Okay. Well, last session was a huge win for us. We got the Charter Omnibus Bill passed, and then a Charter Review Board bill passed. The Omnibus Bill had several items in it. I think the most important one was, in my opinion, was the fact that counties now are able to give facility funding to a charter school if they so choose. We call that May Capital. And we've already seen that now take place in Bladen County. And I think it encourages charter school leaders to be more involved with their county commissioners, have a better relationship with them. And I think that's important because the county commission does fund charter schools through of cash flow through.
So wait a minute. Let me think about this for a moment. So It's a good thing for education to be local. What a concept!
I know.
So not controlled from on high, but a community-based effort where the people that go to the same soccer games and go to the grocery store with one another actually interact with each other. So that's a unique concept. I wonder if anybody's ever tried that before. Anyway, so go ahead.
Well, I think it's kind of like local letting parents choose where their child wants to go to school,
Right.
where they want their child to go to school. That gets very local. But anyway,
Right.
um, so we got that accomplished. We also got accomplished that if the charter school is right on the edge of the state, they can accept out of state students. Um, we let the military families now, they can be part of a priority in getting into charter schools. That bill had lots of little different things in it. Um, the other bill that was very important to us was the Charter School Review Board, which we felt like would simplify the application, renewal policies, all the operation work of charter schools. It wouldn't have to go through the state board unless someone wanted to appeal the decision that the Charter School Review Board made. And so we were just trying to simplify this state board of education, is looking at what we say 5.2 million students, and charter schools consist of right at 140,000. So we thought if we could streamline the process, that would be good. It seems like the state board of education has got other ideas about it. We'll see how that plays out.
Well, we had a good friend, a neighbor many years ago that was on the state board of education, and we were having a frank discussion. And she said, what amazes me? She said, charter school students take up such a small percentage of the population and such a small percentage of the budget. But she said, I don't understand why we spend so much time worrying about them. So this is one of her observations when she was first on the board. It wasn't registering to her why so much time and effort was being spent on something that is almost a rounding error when you look at the big picture of education. So I digress.
Yeah.
Sorry, so you were saying?
Well, I think it's philosophically, while I feel like we complement the public school system, we have district schools, we have charter schools, and we give parents options. You don't have to attend because of your zip code. While I feel that we complement the district schools, of course, there are those that feel like we're in competition and really don't want charter schools to exist. And we're seeing that more and more with our state board of education. I'm sorry, but actions speak louder than words. And so we're just very concerned about the actions that we're seeing at the state board.
So we'll get back to that one second. As far as other wins this past session, so it's the new group, the new board is fantastic. Funding, the flexibility in the enrollment. Are there any other nice factors in there that are like funding or school safety grants or other things that were beneficial?
Well, the most important thing I think that happened to us is that we had both bills that were vetoed by the governor, and we were able to hold all the Republicans together. And that's not an easy task when a representative may not have a charter school in their district. But we were able to hold all the Republicans.
You also had crossovers from the other side that did the right thing.
Exactly. And so that was a big win, and we overrode the governor's veto on both of those bills. So just the political clout that we're having now, I think is important. Charter schools now are in the game. And like what you said before, if you're not at the table politically, you will be on the table. And so I try to work with Republican or Democrat. I really don't care. I just care about the charter school movement. And so we work very, very hard to change people's mind with data and facts, and change people's hearts with the stories that happen all through charter schools. And then if we can't change their heart and mind, then we will change their seat. And because we are a C6, we can get involved in elections. We don't work with the candidates. We don't work with their campaigns, but we do our own marketing, letting folks know who supports two things mainly: fair funding, equal funding, not more, but not less, fair funding. And then also autonomy. We spend, I can't even tell you how much time. I mean, it's daily a fight against regulatory creep for charter schools. And
those are the two rails, funding and regulation. Those are the two rails that you're riding on.
Right. And our government relations team consists of my counsel, Matthew Tilley with Womble, Bond, and Dickinson. And then we have Harry Kaplan and Dylan Reel, that they're with McGuire Woods. And then Lee Teague, which is with T Advocacy.
So these are quote unquote, so they're with different firms and they're lobbyists, if that's the correct terminology.
That's correct.
Like with Matthew Tilley, who I've known for many, many years, and they're all good guys, they're solid. But Matthew, I think, is more of a, not a policy walk, but kind of we had the discussion years ago about some people playing, a few of us playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. So Matthew's a four-dimensional chess player. So I think if you could explain a little bit about how his mind works on these policy issues, because I'm pretty sure he helps craft the direction. Is that correct?
That's correct. He has served on, well, first of all, he worked with Richard Vinroot and litigated the Sugar Creek lawsuit case, which was local funding. And I think what really aggravated him the most is they won in the courts. And then the General Assembly, it was the last day the Democrats held the General Assembly, ran through a technical bill that literally overturned everything that Richard and Matthew won in court. And so and we haven't been able to overturn that. It gets in the weeds and it gets very confusing for people. And some of our General Assembly members, they don't understand all the pieces of it. And then, of course, the School Board Association comes out. I mean, you know.
Well, we were actually, years ago, I was involved in the legislation that would have gotten rid of that.
Yes.
And our charter friends in the General Assembly, some of whom have moved on to higher places, torpedoed.
Yeah.
So well, we had the votes, we had the legislation, and some of our quote unquote supporters just killed it.
Well, and that's because of the teachers, the North Carolina Association of Educators, North Carolina School Board Association, all the folks that do not like charter schools, okay?
But by the way, still didn't support the people that turned their back on us.
Right.
To thwart that legislation, of which I had the conversation with the chief person that torpedoed it later. I said, well, that really worked out well for you, didn't it? Because they still hate you.
I know. But anyway, we've tried again since then. And we will try again. We learn a little bit every time we run that kind of bill. But anyway, Matthew also serves on the board of Sugar Creek right now, and so he has a strong interest in what happens with charter schools, and he can write bills. So he knows the statute. He writes the bills. He litigate if he needs to, and so we write our bills and then get a champion in the General Assembly to run them, and then we right there dog tail it the whole way through. I mean, it's just we're working every day of the session.
So a couple of different points on that. So you've got a solid team of people developing policy, working with the General Assembly, going through the process of getting the legislation done. So and then your job is herding the cats. But you also have schools that you have as your members. So explain to us a little bit about how the coalition is structured and how you work with schools to get the support and get the funding to have the team go out on the field and fight the fight.
We have over 90 schools that are coalition member schools, and they pay dues. And the way it's structured is that because some of the independent schools were a little concerned about EMOs and all of that. So the way it's structured is that an independent school joins, their fees are determined by their ADM. So it's a sliding scale depending upon how many students you have. And then our EMOs can join at the largest ADM of the largest independent school in the state. And because their votes are aligned to our board of directors, we have 13 board of director members, and they are also nominated by our member schools and then voted on by our member schools. Our board does interviews with everyone that's nominated, and then they suggest a slate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that slate wins, because it's up to our member schools. I will tell you though, in the 4 years, like I said, we're getting ready to start our 5th year. In the 4 years that we have been operating, we have not had any problem getting board members, getting nominees, more than what the vacancies that we have on our board. And
So
so,
it's an open, transparent process that's fair and based on the skin you've got in the game. So
exactly.
that sounds so. So it's actually a democratic process, and it represents a whole cross section of small independents and maybe CMOs, EMOs. So the big and the small are all pretty much represented equally. And so how does that work? So you come up with the policies, and then go back to the board and say, all right, these are the key issues. Again, the 2 rails that you're riding on that track, funding and regulatory creep.
Right. And what we do before the session even begins, I mean, we started for the 2024 session that's going to begin in April. We start the year before with, I sent out an email in our newsletter, our Coalition Connection newsletter. We ask our member schools, what policies would you like to see changed? What are you feeling as a hindrance? And then we
So it's a
decide.
grassroots effort.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's what is hitting them. I mean, what are they facing? And so our government relations team, which is Matthew, our lobbyist, and then the chair, Shannon Stein, right now is the chair of our legislative committee. We get together, we go through every item that's been suggested. We decide if it's regulatory or statutory. And then whether we can do it, like the short session coming up, we know we're not going to get much accomplished. So there were some items on there we moved to the long session, and we're starting to work on them right now for the long session. But in between time, we've got an election coming up. So we also have endorsed candidates. We did not endorse any primary candidates in 2022. We were just starting. That was our first big election that we got involved in. And the board has voted on protocol on how do we select those candidates, because again, emotions and working with elections has a lot of emotion to it. So we explained to everybody that we're looking at 2 things, going back to what you said. We look at fair funding and autonomy, and we interview the candidates, and we have a endorsement list based on that. And we have pretty detailed protocol on which elections we'll get involved in.
So how, to that point, how engaged can you get? Will you be able to send out, so we're located in Guilford County. So let's say there's a hotly contested race for a general assembly seat, and you've got somebody that's really pro-charter. So for example, in a district here, we've got a pro-charter Democrat that's being primary. So how engaged can the coalition get to support this, Democratic representative to say, hey, this guy's one of us? How engaged can you get?
Well, can I go ahead and call the name?
It's entirely up to you. Yes.
Okay, in Guilford County, it's Cecil Brockman. Cecil worked with us on both of our bills and helped with the override. He is a strong charter school supporter. So we do not work with his campaign. I haven't talked with him since the campaign season started, but we will be doing some social media and text messaging, and we are looking at what we do is look at Democrat voters, because he's in the Democrat primary. And we will be sending text messages to voters that we know are active voters, and hope to make sure that they go and vote. Number one, sometimes people just don't vote, but we're going to make sure that these active voters get a lot of text messages from us, that if you want to put parents over politics, then you want to support Cecil Brockman.
And that we discussed that in the episode last week with Laura Songster about, Cecil is our guy. We may not agree on a lot of other policy issues, but
Right.
he's the guy. So in fact, we've invited him to be a guest on the show next week. So
Oh,
we're going to
okay.
have Cecil's going to be coming in to talk as well. So you can get engaged in that manner. So let's see, what are the other elements? You've got you can't engage the schools can't engage politically.
Right.
So it's just a matter of going to the community and not going to the schools. That's an important distinction.
Right. But let me say, Paul, individual parents at schools can get involved.
Oh,
And
yes.
we've had individual parents, not part of the
Yes.
PTA, not part of the school,
Right.
but pass out cards in the carpool line. And
Yes.
there's no reason why they can't do that.
Well, you got a
So,
First Amendment right to express your views. So yes, they should do that.
and
So
people need to realize whether you like it or not, charter schools are political.
oh yes.
And we must engage in this. Like I said, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And if we want to keep our autonomy, we have to be engaged this way.
Well, it's funny because I'll relate a personal story. So I was involved in that 2018 in those meetings and all the beginning, and I backed out and said, I'm just not involved in this anymore. And so I was in New York visiting our daughter that works for Success Academies. And so I was explaining to her that there's politics in charter schools no matter what you do. And she's like, oh, I don't know about that. So we're in her apartment. I turn on the TV, and there's a Success Academies ad going after Mayor de Blasio. Tell Mayor de Blasio to stop messing with our schools. And I looked at my daughter. I said, you see, it doesn't matter where you are, no matter what you do. Sadly, it's political, and there's no way to get around it. So you're engaging the community. You're getting, not directly going through the schools because that's not right, but the community getting involved in it.
Right.
And so the next step with the electorate, so you've got the candidates that you support and you come out with that, it's on your website and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you engage? I know you've got the summit coming up in a few
Yes.
weeks. And so if you wouldn't mind explaining how that works, how you get the schools together with the elected officials, because that's part of what we want to support at the charter school marketplace as well, is to kind of reinforce that with, supporting what you're doing, plus also getting the business sector more engaged as well to support the schools that provide them with income so that the elected officials understand that we're all one big community, we have to work together. So if you would kind of explain how the summit works.
Well, we started the summit last year. That was our first one. And what we do is, and this year it will be March 7th and 8th. It's a Thursday and Friday. And Thursday night we will have a reception, mainly a networking time, and we're going to honor our superintendent that night, Superintendent Truitt, for her support and her leadership on charter schools that we have shared and witnessed, and we just appreciate her work so much. She is one of the candidates that we have come out and endorsed. So that's going to be a Thursday night. It's going to be at the Marriott Crabtree. Then the next day is really the summit. And the breakfast starts at 7:30 in the morning, and we go until 3 o'clock or 3:30. We try to end by 3:30 so everybody can get home. But we have sessions, 30-minute sessions, one right after another on hot topics. And then what we do, some of them, there's just one speaker, some is a panel. For example, we're going to have a panel on local funding. I think that, or state and local funding.
Right.
On there is going to be Aaron Bowler with School Solutions. He has been working with us a lot, auditing schools, charter schools with local funding from the LEAs. But he's going to discuss, a lot of charter schools operators don't realize the ADM model, or the formula we're using to determine ADM, which is the funding backbone of the school, is going to be totally changed in 24-25. And so we're going to go into that, a lot into that. Also, last year with local funding, Dr. Smith, who's also going to be on the panel, worked with a group of people to develop a template of how funding should transfer from the LEA to the charter school. And a lot of people don't know that the funding, the template should it should be used by every LEA. And so that's going to be an interesting panel. Christy Berry with Lincoln Charter, their CFO, is going to come and talk about her experience in using the template. She was on the committee that helped design this template for transparency. We also are going to have Senator Jarvis, Representative Zinger, and then Steve Hubrick with the Hubrick Construction. They're going to be talking about the new bill we passed regarding permitting and trying to expedite that permitting process when you're building a charter school or expanding a charter school. We've got, and this is interesting because we know we don't get as many Democrat votes, right? And so Senator Woodard of Durham is going to be coming and giving us a Democratic perspective on charter schools.
So just to jump in for a moment, so there's some people out there that are disparaging the group, saying, "Oh, it's a conservative right-wing group," but nothing could be further from the truth.
Oh no,
because it's a bipartisan organization supporting one thing: charter schools. So I think if you did a survey of parents in charter schools, there might be more Democrat parents than Republicans, and I don't know. You shouldn't know because it's nobody's business. That's not the point.
Well, education should not be R or D. It should be
Correct.
Students. Put an S on your jersey.
Not an R or a D, but an E for education.
Education. Very good. And so, and we've tried to really be very careful in letting people know we will never endorse a party, but we do endorse candidates based on their views on, again, fair funding and autonomy. So
pretty simple, really.
It really is.
So who is going to be in attendance and who should be going to the coalition summit?
Charter school leaders. We've got charter school board members that are coming. You've got 5 or 6 of the board, and they're just going to have a table, and they're going to use it as professional development for the board and the leader of the school. We've got over 30 sponsors. So we've got some really good vendors that are coming. Charter School Marketplace is going to be there. And then, believe it or not, we have some parents that come. The coalition has 3 main newsletters. One is the Coalition Connection, which is what we send out to our member schools. We send out Charter Chatter for just information that we think everybody needs to know. And then we have the Charter Beat, which is it's designed specifically for charter parents. Doesn't cost a thing. You can go on our website and sign up for it. And so we just try to keep our parents aware of what's going on. So we told them about the summit, and we'll have a few parents there.
So did the schools or the parents pay to attend, or are they free of charge?
The members and non-members pay. The member schools get a discount, of course, and you just go on our website and look at the 2024 summit, and you can sign up through there. And we try to keep it as minimal as we can, just to cover the food cost and the cost of the hotel.
There'll be links after the show for the summit and how to attend.
Okay, great.
Well, is there anything you think we missed that everybody should know about the North Carolina Coalition of Charter Schools?
Well, we're excited. We're beginning our 5th year, and it's so thrilling to me to get into the schools and talk to the leaders and see what a diverse group of people we have in North Carolina and how strong the charter school movement is in North Carolina, and we want to keep it that way.
Well, what I keep saying is the first quarter century is behind us. Now we're turning the page and moving to the next quarter century, and may it be a lot stronger and more effective and efficient than the previous 25. I
think so. I'm excited.
Well, thank you very much for the work that you do. I know that you work extremely hard, and you're all around the state, and that you are a true believer, and it's for a passion, not for a paycheck. And that many students and families benefit from your hard work, and I want to thank you for it.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that.
Well, I will see you at the Coalition Summit in the next few weeks.
All right. See you at the summit.
Thank you again. I appreciate it. you.